want to clean up your room.
Clean up your room. Clean up the room. Cleaning your room. I like the idea of the room. Mushrooms like a room, maybe your bedroom.
You will be unhappy and not happy in the room.
Do this in a room.
It's a non-trivial matter. Put your damn room together.
Okay, I don't look that cool when I'm cleaning my room. It looks more like this. But I did clean my room, and my room is in fact so clean now that you can take a piece of microfiber and wipe the floor beneath my feet and look at that microfiber again, and it will look as if it has never been used. And it's quite satisfying. Now, cleaning your room is an idea that's popularized by Jordan Peterson, at least in the West, to the point that it became a meme at some point. If you're not familiar with Jordan Peterson, he's a clinical psychologist and professor of psychology from Canada. He introduced the idea of cleaning your room as a tool to essentially help people improve their lives. And the idea is that you should start with cleaning your room before attempting bigger projects in life. A lot of people were dismissive of this idea. It's like, why is cleaning your room a big deal? I mean, I want to make millions of dollars and change the world. I can do that with an uncleaned room. There's no law of physics that will be broken for somebody to save the world without cleaning their room. So why would I even entertain this idea? Well, I've gone ahead and cleaned my room, and if you are skeptical about this endeavor of cleaning your room and think that it is a project that has no point, let me throw a few quick statistics at you that might pique your interest. The first one is that I first committed to the project of cleaning my apartment on May 15th of this year. It wasn't until May 22nd that I actually started cleaning my apartment. Why did I procrastinate for a whole week there? If this is so easy, why wouldn't I have been able to do it right away? And once I started cleaning on May 22nd, I wasn't able to finish cleaning my apartment until today. It's June 2nd. It took me almost 2 weeks to clean my apartment. Now, this isn't a huge mansion that I'm talking about. This is a pretty small studio apartment that a professional cleaning crew can probably get it done in an hour, if not 30 minutes. It took me almost 2 weeks, right? If it were so easy, why did it take me this long? The third point is even more interesting. When I first started cleaning my room, I got into a huge argument with my girlfriend that day. Isn't that interesting? Why is it that me cleaning my own apartment was making the people that are closest to me, that I care about the most, so uncomfortable to the point that it would inspire them to have a huge fight with me? Now, all these are interesting phenomena. There are, I would say, deep questions that would require quite a bit of time to dissect and unpack, and I will do just that for the rest of this video. But just in case that you were doubtful that there's no point to the project of cleaning your room, I'm hoping that the aforementioned things have at least begun to make you think that there's more that meets the eye to the project of cleaning your room. Now, first things first, I committed to the project of cleaning my room on May 15th. At that point, I have decided that cleaning my apartment was going to be the most important thing that I would focus on for the next 3 weeks. This was going to be my main priority. And yet I didn't start cleaning until May 22nd, until a week afterwards. Now, if you were to ask me to come up with interesting excuses, I could tell you that I was busy with work that week, I had to go to the gym, I was feeling a bit sick, I had a trip planned. There were other things to do, for sure, but they weren't real blockers. I could have started cleaning my room sooner, but I didn't. In fact, on the day when I actually started cleaning, May 22nd, I was alone in my apartment, and I remember sitting on my bed, wanting to get my body to start cleaning, and couldn't, and I was stuck in that stalemate for a good 2 hours before I finally started cleaning. It was quite bizarre. Why was it so hard to start cleaning my room? I mean, how difficult could it be? I wasn't asked to run towards enemy fire in a trench warfare. I was simply trying to clean my room. What was stopping me? Now, as with any processes related to procrastination, there is an emotional component to this. I haven't cleaned my room for a long time. In fact, I don't think I've ever truly, completely cleaned this apartment. This whole project seemed very overwhelming at the time, and I didn't want to start, the same way a student didn't want to start writing his or her essay assignment. But there's also a logical component to this procrastination. And the logical component comes from my brain's tendency to try to map out the entire domain of the project. So just to make this concrete, I was sitting on my bed and I was trying to plan out exactly what I'm supposed to do from the beginning of cleaning my apartment to the end, and then every step in between. I wanted to know what I should do first, and what I should do after that, and then after that, and every step in between all the way to the end. I wanted full information about this project, and I did not want to start until I've got this whole picture in my head. And it was more information than my mental capacity could handle. And that's understandable, right? How could I know everything that was going to happen from the moment I started cleaning until the end? That's impossible. Now, this tendency to want full information is quite common. Sometimes you hear in the entrepreneurial circle of people wanting you to just take the leap. Just do it. Don't overthink. Because a lot of people are stuck in what's called analysis paralysis, right? They wanted full information. They are gathering more and more information, and with the internet, you have access to unlimited information, which means that if you are doing the work of information gathering, that work is unlimited. You can gather information until the day you die, and you will still not be able to gather all the information. And if you want full information before you start, you will basically never start because you never get full information. And that all seemed like great argument for the idea that you should just stop gathering information and just start doing the thing. But what's actually so spurious about the information gathering approach is that things change, right? We don't live in a static world. If you want to accomplish anything difficult in life, what you're supposed to do now will likely be different from what you're supposed to do a month from now, because the landscape you're dealing with is fluid and it's changing all the time. So the best framework to deal with this situation is what's called an iterative approach. What that means in this context is that what you should assess is not the plan from the beginning to the very end, because you will never get that plan. What you should strive to assess is the next steps. Where should I put my foot next? What should I do next in the immediate next step? That is what you should be worried about, because you just need to gather enough information such that you know where to plant your feet next and then execute the next step. And the completion of that next step will give you information about how to walk further steps. In the case of cleaning my room, I really could not figure out the entire plan of cleaning my whole apartment. What I knew at the time, however, was that there are a couple of areas in my apartment that were calling out to me to be cleaned. I knew that I had to clean the kitchen. I knew that I had to clean the bathroom. There are things that I knew that must be done. Perhaps I didn't know what I would do after dealing with those immediate things, but I knew that these immediate things existed and they were there to be done. So what I decided was to just do those things and then see what happens. And sure enough, right, the moment I walked into the washroom, it occurred to me that I needed to clean the toilet. After I cleaned the toilet, I realized I needed to clean the bathtub. Once I cleaned the bathtub, I realized I needed to mop the floor, and so on and so forth, until I've cleaned all the things in the washroom. And then I realized I needed to clean the kitchen. Right? And then I realized I needed to clean my office. And after I cleaned my office, I realized I needed to clean the bedroom. After completing each step, the next step appears in front of my eyes. Right? That's the iterative process. And you can take this same process when doing anything else that's hard in your life. Right? When you're starting a business, you might not know exactly what you should do 5 years from now, but there are a couple of tasks that are screaming at you to be done right at this moment. So do them first. Completing them will reveal what you should do next. But you won't know with clarity about those further steps until you've walked the next step. So what really got me over that procrastinative hump at the very beginning was just a commitment to just walk the next step and have faith that once I've walked the next step, further step will be revealed to me. And that did prove to be true. Now, it's all well and good that I've started cleaning my room on May 22nd, but I didn't finish cleaning my room until today, which is June 2nd. It took me almost 2 weeks to clean a very small studio apartment. The question is, what took so long? Now, it could just be a skill issue. I might just be very bad at cleaning an apartment, and a skilled cleaner could clean much more efficiently than I do, and there's probably some truth to that, but that doesn't explain the whole phenomenon, because I've actually worked as a cleaner before. When I was in college, I worked as a housekeeper for a summer, where I was cleaning some of the dorm room buildings in my universities that were during the summer converted to hotel rooms for people that are coming to the university for conferences. But that was a thing that my university used to do. And while I was working as a cleaner, I was relatively fast, at least was as fast as every other average crew member in that housekeeping team. I am slower now when it comes to cleaning my own apartment was primarily a result of perfectionism. For example, I was cleaning my bathroom and I really wanted to clean it perfectly. When I was mopping the floor, for instance, I wanted, with each strike of this mop, I wanted to do it perfectly. Because this was a project that meant a lot to me, I wanted each action I took to be perfect. And because of that expectation, I had to be very careful when I executing those actions, because if I didn't do it perfectly, I fear that I would disappoint myself and as a result generate a bunch of negative self-talk that's rather unpleasant to listen to in my head. Now, I'm still not perfectly over perfectionism yet. I would say perfectionism is a problem I deal with in almost all projects that I care about. The moment I care about something, I felt a tendency to want to do it perfectly. And I have to do something to get over it. And that's something that I do that's been quite effective is iteration. Again, but a different aspect of the iterative process. Now, what this is which is a recognition or an observation of the fact that a lot of human endeavors allows multiple tries, if not unlimited tries. Take mopping the floor, for instance. What happens if my first mopping action was not perfect? Let's say it was a bad mop, right? I tried to mop the floor and I didn't put enough pressure there and it didn't do anything to the gunk on the floor, or I didn't hit the spot I wanted to. Whatever happened that made it an imperfect mop. What is the consequence of that imperfect execution? Well, the consequence is that I have to do it again. It didn't resolve the problem I wanted to solve, so I need to mop again and again until I've made the floor as clean as I want it to be. And that actually means that when it comes to mopping the floor, there's actually close to no consequence to an imperfect mopping action. An imperfect mopping action costs nothing. It doesn't generate any problems. You don't have to pay money for it. If you mop the floor and it was bad, just mop it again. Right? Mopping the floor is an area of human endeavor that allows a limited amount of tries. You can try as many times as you'd like. If you're finding yourself being blocked by perfectionism in human endeavors like that, just remember that you can try again. The results that you're looking for actually aren't impacted by whether or not you're executing perfectly, because the project allows unlimited tries. You can just keep trying until you get the result that you want. And the process of iteration comes in with each iterative try. So I would mop the floor first, however imperfectly, right? And I would look at the floor and observe what it looks like now that I've mopped it once. Think about whether it's as clean as I'd like it to. And if I do need to mop it again, how can I do it better based on how I did it last time? But each subsequent try would take into the account of the result of the previous try and what happened in the previous try, and improvements will be made accordingly. Right? That's the idea of iteration. So if you're dealing with an endeavor that allows multiple tries, you know that by thinking it through the lens of iteration, you can basically remove perfectionism out of the equation completely. But not all human endeavors are like that, of course. There are some endeavors where the subsequent tries are either very difficult or very expensive, or sometimes there is no second try, right? An example would be Elon Musk's company SpaceX. I believe when he was first starting the company, the first 3 launches failed. The rocket blew up in the sky. Each try, in that example, which is to say each launch of the rocket, is extremely costly. It costs millions, if not tens of millions of dollars to build a rocket and then launch it. He didn't have the luxury of having unlimited launches and learn from the mistake of each launch, because each launch costs millions of dollars. And it becomes even more costly if there are humans on board of those rockets. In those cases, the launch becomes priceless because the consequence of failure is human lives. So in those endeavors, you can't learn from the mistakes of each try, and you really have to be perfect with a try. But what you could do with those endeavors is to either look for opportunities to iterate in a much cheaper way, or create opportunities to iterate in a much cheaper way. One thing that is often done with rocket launches are simulation software. They aren't perfect, but they're helpful, which is, they're software that mimic physics of the world, and you would construct the rocket within the software and try to launch it within the software, and the software will show this much thrust, and with these kind of forces acting on the rocket, it would go up, and then maybe it will blow up with those kind of combination. But the blowing up happened in the software, and you can run the software as many times as you'd like in a costless fashion. So one thing that you might want to do if you struggle with perfectionism is to think about whether your perfectionism is warranted at this moment, is warranted for the project you're in. If it is warranted, think about if there are ways to create opportunities where you have unlimited tries or cheaper tries. Now, the third interesting thing that happened that I alluded to earlier was that when I started cleaning my room, it made my girlfriend rather anxious, and we got into this big fight that day, and some small fights here and there subsequently when I was cleaning as well. Now, I'm not saying this to take a dig at my girlfriend. I'm not trying to overshare on the internet either. I mean, I love my girlfriend. She's a wonderful human being. I'm bringing this up because it illustrates a very interesting point. On the surface, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with me cleaning my own room in relationship to other people. I mean, this is my apartment. My name's on the lease. I pay the rent. What's wrong with me cleaning my own room? Well, what happens when you clean your room, especially if you've never cleaned your room, is that you are unarguably changing your life for the better. It may not be a drastic change. You're not suddenly becoming a millionaire, but you are making your life better. Your life is unquestionably better when you live in a clean environment than when you're living in a squalor. And it's a very visible change, especially if you've never cleaned your room before and your room is a mess. Cleaning that up is a very visible change. It's very hard to miss, and that can make people that are close to you uncomfortable for at least two reasons. First is that you're messing with their map of the world. You're almost messing with your sense of reality a little bit. We tend to have a implicit map of the world with which we represent things that are constant in our lives in a structured and ordered way. For instance, I know that there's gravity, things tend to fall downwards, there's a Starbucks across the street, this is how much grocery is supposed to cost, and Louis is someone who's close to me and important in my life, and he tends to act and talk in that kind of way. And one of those ways is that he tends to live in a messy environment, and then one day I get home and suddenly find him cleaning his room. Well, that's uncomfortable to me. It's uncomfortable because on my map, in the section where I use to represent Louis isn't the kind of person who usually clean his room. Now he suddenly cleans his room. That means that he's changing in quite an obvious way. That means that my map is now wrong. I might have to change my map, and that's a bunch of extra work that I now have to do that I didn't have to do before. I don't want to do this extra work. I hate extra work. Extra work is annoying. So let me try to stop Louis from cleaning his room, so that if Louis can stop behaving so differently from his usual self, then I don't have to do this extra work of updating my map. Or this is why when you start cleaning your room, it could make the people in your life uncomfortable, and you might find them actively starting to sabotage your effort of cleaning your own room. It's something that I would say is natural, and I wouldn't say that the people that are close to me that attempt to sabotage my effort of cleaning my room have ill intention or are bad people in any way. It's just that what I'm doing is clearly different from what I usually do, and that's messing up with their sense of order a little bit, and that's making them uncomfortable. Speaking for my own specific circumstances, my girlfriend, who got mad at me for cleaning my room, was simply surprised that I suddenly started doing something that she hadn't seen before. But while we were having the fight, it became obvious to us that there were some talks that we should have had from long ago that we didn't have because we thought it was unpleasant to have them. There are difficult conversations that were postponed. This is something that Jordan Peterson talks about in relationship. You really should have those difficult conversations as soon as possible, because if you delay it, you're essentially letting it grow. The longer you delay it, the longer it grows. You know, what started out as a small lizard, if you sweep it under the carpet, after a couple years it might grow into this huge fire-breathing dragon, and you still need to fight a dragon, but you might not be able to survive that fight at that point. Whereas at the beginning, it's a lizard, it looks disgusting and it's annoying to deal with it, but at least it's doable. And when I had that vehement discussion with my girlfriend when I started cleaning my room was that I realized that there are some discussions that we should have had long ago, and I simply didn't want to have them because I thought that they were unpleasant, so I was delaying them. And as a result of my girlfriend seeing me cleaning my room, that triggered something in her to then bring up all of those past problems. And I'm learned that I shouldn't delay those difficult conversations. Isn't it interesting that the simple act of me cleaning my room can reveal some pretty deep areas where I need to work on in my relationship? That's, I would say, not something that one tend to expect to learn from just cleaning one's room. Now, the second reason why people might be uncomfortable with your cleaning your room is more spurious, more insidious. This is where if you are living with people who do not like their life situation, but you either don't have the courage or like the skill sets or the awareness, or for whatever reason don't want to change their lives, they're actively avoiding their inner call to make their lives better. And that's not an easy thing to do, to ignore that inner call. And they suddenly see you making your life better in a very visible way that they cannot ignore. What you are doing is reminding them of what they're not doing. Here you are becoming a shining reminder that is making their project of avoiding change much more difficult. And they are now coming to sabotage your effort of improving your life so that they don't have to be reminded of how they are not improving theirs. Now, this obviously could be a much more toxic situation, and it is a subject that is outside of my area of expertise. In general, I always recommend people to seek professional help if they need it, and I'm lucky to not be in a toxic relationship, and this might not necessarily apply to your circumstances, but I'm hoping that my experience can be somewhat helpful to you. Now, if I take a step back and look at my endeavor of cleaning my room, I'm pleasantly surprised about the kind of lessons that I was able to learn. I mentioned in the beginning about the skepticism that one could have about the project of cleaning your room, and how just the simple act of cleaning your room can be of any substantial value. But let's look at least what I've learned so far. I've learned the process of iteration and how the iterative structure is useful navigationally, in the sense that you might not necessarily know how the entire journey will look like at the very beginning, but you take the first step, and that step reveal further steps. You take those steps, and even further steps are revealed to you, and such is how you walk your own unique journey. I learned about the iterative process when it comes to perfectionism, and how having the opportunities and creating the opportunities to try things again and again helps to remove perfectionism as a barrier and make the end result of your endeavor better at the same time. And lastly, who would have thought that a simple act of cleaning my room would reveal to me what I have been lacking in my relationships, and how I should not avoid or run away from difficult conversations, that I should have them as soon as the need to have them arises. And these are not the kind of deep lessons that one expects to have from the simple act of cleaning one's room. And the project of cleaning my room really is a microcosm of much bigger projects in life. The same sort of iterative process and the ability to have difficult conversations in relationship to other people is how I would navigate in much bigger and more difficult projects, like starting a business or raising a family or solving other difficult problems that life bring at me. And I will end with my favorite rule from Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson, as you might know, wrote a famous book, 12 Rules for Life, and then he wrote another one called 12 More Rules for Life. I still find it funny that he did that. But those 24 rules included in those two books were actually taken from 42 rules that he originally wrote online. And my favorite one never made it to a book. It's called Nothing Well Done is Insignificant. Nothing well done is insignificant. Cleaning your room might be small, but it isn't insignificant if you've done it well. People say how you do one thing is how you do everything. I've approached this project of cleaning my room as seriously as I can, and it's become a much richer and deeper experience than I could ever expect. And if you've never cleaned your room, I would recommend that you do. And if you've never cleaned your room and you're planning to, then I'm excited for you, because you are in for quite a wild ride.